What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show here on Media Row here for the Super Bowl. Trevor Sikkema with you guys, and we also have Sam Schwartzstein with us, who I'm very excited to talk about. The inventor of football, as your bio says.
Technically the inventor of football. Is it for a patent on tessellating the XFL 2020 logo on a football? Yes, but the way the patent says, it does say inventor of football.
I love it. He does great stuff with Prime Vision as well on the Thursday Night Football broadcast, and I want to talk to you about all the sorts of stuff that you're doing there. But honestly, I do want to go back to that XFL stuff because it's fascinating to me. You know, you joke around a little bit right there, but you helped come up with all of like the rules and basically how things were going to be played at that level. And we're seeing some of those other leagues kind of pop up and obviously stick around and everything. We've seen some of those changes be implemented to the NFL as well. So my opening question to you is just like, what was that like, creating that, like having the ability to say, hey, here's a new league. We sort of have the creativity to go about this game and change these little things that we want here. How was that kind of coming up with a lot of the functionality of that league when it was getting kicked off?
Yeah, thanks, Trevor, for having me on. I think what I felt very fortunate was to get on the ground floor. Oliver Luck, the day before he took the job, he texted me, I'm taking a job in sports. I want you to come with me. I can't tell you yet. So I'm thinking it's a soccer rule, right? Because he did the MLS with the Dynamo.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he's coming from off college football. What is this going to be? And when it was the XFL, it was huge for me because I learned to play football with an XFL football. That's how I got into football, was watching the XFL in 2001 come out. So I felt very fortunate. But Bill had the greenfield ability to come up with anything. So I just looked at it last night. I had 172 ideas of what we could do to change the game of football. And I went through all 64 and a half pages of the rule book. And I looked at every single line of why do we do this? Why do we do this? And getting to go and kind of figure out and solve that. And was fortunate. We had good calling card. We were going to reimagine the game, but there was four main pillars. At Amazon, we call them tenets, kind of. Minimize idle time, speed of the game, reduce meaningless plays, make a dynamic, more rhythmic game, but keep it traditional football without the gimmicks. And so every single rule had to pass through those filters. And it was very cool because I'd been in the tech area. I went to Stanford. And like that kind of being able to take those methodologies and then apply it to football, like the coolest thing in the world. It was awesome. And part of that was, chasing down analytics. And I wanted to build a data-driven football league. Data-driven is the whole Silicon Valley. And so I got to do that. And so creating a baby and now seeing all the different, whether it's, Greg Olson, Kevin Burkhardt, the first time they were a duo was on our broadcast. They were on our B team, right? Seeing different things like that, being able to see coach-to-player communication now go to college football, being able to see the dynamic kickoff, who spawned off of something similar in the XFL. Like, it's really cool to see that, as well as all the great people that came out of the league as well.
Of some of those changes from what would have been considered like, okay, how they played mainstream stuff at the NFL, which one that got implemented was the toughest sell that you're like, okay, like, no, we need to have this. This is better for the game. Is there one thing, like a rule change or maybe a style change or something that you felt like was the toughest sell at the end of the day that gets in and you go, see, I told you, see, it worked out?
Well, it's pretty obvious, the kickoff. Okay. The surprise onside is a huge play. It's my And what's very funny is I have a very supportive family, but my brother still does not like the kickoff. And he loves everything about me, but that was his favorite play. And I was like, it's 1% of 1% of kicks. Like, really, how valuable is that? And it was really tough because it was the only play where you had to predetermine. I looked at the election for the extra point in the NFL as like my throughway. Say, hey, you have to elect to go for one or for a kicking play or not. So let's just apply that same logic to the kickoff. And so that was a really tough one. And I had coaches bashing me for a long time. I had data and we tested over 18 months. I tested kicking from probably 6 different spots, set up zones in different areas. And we finally settled on it. And it was funny. After week 1, the guys were like, hey, this is pretty good, huh? And I was like, the same guys who were telling me I've ruined football forever. But, I think it's great seeing. I think the NFL released a lot of great data about how their version of the kickoff has been safer, more action in the game. And that's really the whole point of it is how can we keep this the great game we love and modernize it for what we see right now with the modern player?
Feel free to tell me if you can't give away this secret, but is there something that maybe wasn't implemented or hasn't been implemented yet, whether it's in new leagues or in the NFL itself, where you go, man, I feel like this is where the game is going, whether it's an adjustment to the rule, something that they might be able to do. If you're like, man, I would love for them to do this, I think it would really advance the game one way or another. Is there anything that you've kind of focused on there that you could say?
Yeah, I think for the game I was trying to build, I can only talk about that because we had a under 3 hours, same amount of plays. That was our focus. I had coach-to-player communication at every single player's helmet, and then you could communicate that audio directly to the broadcast. So it's another patent I have where you could tap in directly to the coach's communication system. And if there ever was a need to get an extra game and we wanted to reduce the number of plays in a game, let's say they went to 12-minute quarters with 20 games, something like that, you could still have the same amount of action without the wear and tear on players' bodies. But, I don't know if that's ever a plausibility, but there is a way to do it. Interesting enough, we looked at a lot of the player data. You run about 1.5 miles less when you run no-huddle offense as a wide receiver because you're not running in and running out. When we're running more tempo, you're not subbing in and out. It sounds counterintuitive, but the amount of ground you cover is actually much less. You also have different body types. You can't build for more high speed because you need to have some sort of endurance body type as well. It leads to fewer soft tissue. So there's a lot of different things you can add to it, but I think at some point that is a lever they can pull to move it out of just the quarterback's head. I will say this, though. The amount of replays and amazing replays to show how amazing the players are is what makes that modern NFL game the best version of football. And so I still love having the 18 seconds to look at replays before every play.
That does make sense, but that is obviously a very cool sort of idea and something of where the game could go. You guys do so much great stuff with Prime Vision on Thursday Night Football. I mean, watching the broadcast, whether it's a regular broadcast or some of the extra stuff that you guys do, it's so cool to see even just like the little things that you're putting in there that are like, wow, okay, like that was a really cool piece of information that you don't really think about. Obviously at PFF, we try to do that all the time. We try to give people a little bit extra instead of just the box score. Okay, here's the data, here's this, here's that. And so you guys do such a fantastic job. Something that people always want, they always ask for. And especially this year, I felt like they were very loud about it. How do we not have automatic first down? Like, okay, yes, the ball crossed the plane or something like that. And you had a long tweet thread kind of explaining a little bit of why there's a lot of elements that go into that. Will we ever see something like that where we get to a point where like, okay, yeah, like technology told us the ball crossed the plane or the ball crossed where the first down marker is, or just, I know a lot of people, it's been a big talking point, and I know you're very versed in all that, so I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, so I'll start with first the Prime Vision aspect. We do utilize Prime Vision with Next Gen Stats. Next Gen Stats has shoulder pad RFID chips that let us know where the players are, and then because we have the two, we know their orientation. And we build all of our AI models off of that so that when you are watching from our high sky camera angle, you're able to see who's likely to blitz based on defensive alerts. That's an AI model that we built off those RFID tracking chips. So all of that data for years and years, the NFL input this in 2016, hoping that someone like Amazon would come in and do this work. And I feel fortunate to be a part of the team that does that. And so there also is an RFID tracker in the football. And I want to bring that up because everyone says, why not chip the ball? And when everyone says that, they think they're a genius, just like I did in 2018. Because I go, how can we do this? How can we not track the ball? And then I talk to somebody and there's a chip in the ball. Yeah, okay. So now here's the piece of the chip in the ball, measuring first downs. How often does the problem even come up, right? How often do we actually need to measure? It's less than 0.5 times per game. There is a chain measurement, right? And that's gone down over the years. We did a thing in the XFL where if you got 11 and a half yards on your first play, so let's say we started the 30, got 11 and a half yards, we would just call it 12. So you started every play on a yard line, so you rarely need to measure because all you have to do is see, did they get to a yard line or not? The hard part is when a guy gets tackled between the numbers and the hashes, because then you have to check it. But then also, we have 40 cameras to be able to now see. 40 cameras at every NFL game to see, did this guy get there? So now you have to say, when we are the very few measurements, the few times where the cameras cannot find the ball, all right, let's find it with a chip in the ball. Well, where do you put the chip? The chip in the ball is somewhere, it's opposite of where you inject air into the football because it's a counterbalance. But the modern Duke football is still unbalanced. It's why it doesn't spin the same as it used to years ago. So the first thing you have to do, put a chip in the ball. We need to make sure the performance of the players in the field is not affected. It's why I have a patent as the inventor of football, is because we wanted to go iterate. And if we did anything to the football, it could not affect the performance. That's why I tested, I think, 64 different iterations of the football, 8 different variables I could test to make sure if I changed something, it didn't affect performance on the field. So that's first and foremost. So then you say, well, I watch tennis. There's optical tracking there that says in or out.
Right.
Okay. It's a little bit different because the ball is exposed the entire time. So every camera can do it. They have about 6 to 8 cameras in the stadium, much smaller stadium, to then triangulate where the ball is in relation to all the lines. And again, it's not 100% perfect. Even VAR is not perfect. It's still fallible. So you have all these things. Now imagine a guy who's got the ball.
Right.
So we don't have to get into possession. We don't have to get into, time, having a time code that have everything charted. We do all this technology for maybe one play a year. Now, yes, for Bills fans, that was the most important play of the year.
Right.
I totally get it.
Right.
I totally get it. But the level of investment and opportunity cost could be tough. I will say this. Having worked, if you asked me 6 years ago when I first tried to do this, and I think everyone who says we should do this, look, I'm not, when I say don't do it, I'm not saying that because like, oh, I know better than you. I was the exact same spot.
You're just playing devil's advocate.
And like, I've been down the road.
Right.
I had the opportunity. I was going to put both teams on the same sideline, have a ribbon board like soccer that had both teams. And then I really wanted to go really, really fast. So I would have a sub zone where both teams would be on the same area together, walking up and down the sideline. And so
I've never even thought of that. That'd be hilarious.
I was going to say, get rid of change together and just have a ribbon board that has LEDs saying where the yard is. And you could see on play action where the ball is in real time based off the ribbon. So I had all this. I will say now, working with Next Gen Stats and working at Amazon on Prime Vision, it is completely plausible to do this. There has to be the right level of investment and the right team to do it. And I think we have a good team. I'm not saying we're going to do this, but if there was someone to solve spotting the ball, being able to do this, I think that now the technology and the team is there that could do something similar.
Sam, this has been fantastic, man. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but I know you got to go to a bunch of different places. So I appreciate you giving us the time here. This is fantastic stuff. Sam Schwartzstein, make sure you follow him on all social media platforms. He'll make you a smarter football fan. Obviously, you watch the Thursday Night Football broadcast, everything great they're doing with Prime Vision. But, man, this is so informative. I really appreciate you helping us out.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, good to meet you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below. So if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can become one today.